The unthinkable challenge. The Kraxun Empire had waited patiently at the edge of the Sol system, their massive war fleet arranged in perfect geometric formations that reflected their rigid, hierarchical society. For 3 standard cycles, they had observed humanity's chaotic development, cataloging their fractured political systems, their inefficient resource allocation, and their primitive propulsion technology. To the Kraxun High Command, humans were merely another species to be assimilated or eliminated, depending on their usefulness. Admiral Zorthel stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, his 7-foot frame towering over his subordinates as he studied the holographic display of Earth's meager defensive installations. "Pathetic," he rumbled, his scaled skin shifting from deep blue to a confident purple. "They have no unified defense grid, no standardized fleet protocols, not even a proper battle formation." Supreme Commander Vexnar was wise to allocate only 1 battle group for this conquest. His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Krendor, approached with a data tablet. "The diplomatic transmission has been sent, Admiral." As expected, their response is fragmented. Some of their nation-states wish to surrender, others to negotiate, and a few still believe they can resist. Zorthel's facial ridges flared in amusement. "Give them the standard ultimatum. Complete surrender within 1 rotation of their planet, or we demonstrate our power on one of their larger settlements." The Kraxun had conquered 17 systems this way. The formula was simple and efficient: overwhelming force, a demonstration of power, and then acceptance of surrender from a broken people. It had never failed. On Earth, the United Nations Security Council had convened an emergency session. The chamber was in chaos as representatives shouted over one another, their faces pale with fear or red with anger. "We cannot possibly stand against them," the French ambassador declared. "Their smallest vessel outguns our largest military spacecraft." "Surrender means slavery or worse," countered the representative from Majuria. "History has taught us that much." In a secure facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Ilara Voss watched the diplomatic disaster unfold on her monitor with a grim expression. At 38, she had spent her career preparing for this moment, though few had believed her warnings about potential alien contact. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her brown eyes reflected both determination and fear. "They've stopped broadcasting the Security Council meeting," reported Lieutenant Maya Chen, her communications officer. "Probably for the best. It wasn't exactly projecting strength and unity." Commander Voss nodded and turned to face the assembled crew in the briefing room. 12 men and women, the best Earth had to offer, selected from space agencies and military forces worldwide. "The Phoenix is humanity's only chance," she said simply. "While the politicians debate and the Kraxun wait for our surrender, we have our orders. Project Firewall goes into effect now." The Phoenix wasn't impressive by Kraxun standards. A sleek, matte black vessel approximately the size of a terrestrial nuclear submarine. What made it special wasn't its weapons or its armor, but what lay at its core: the quantum entanglement drive, a theoretical impossibility made real through the brilliance of Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, who now sat nervously at the science station. "The TUED has never been tested in combat conditions," he reminded everyone unnecessarily. "We have no idea if—" "It'll work," interrupted Chief Engineer Malcolm Reynolds, his Scottish accent thickening with emotion. "It has to." Commander Voss activated the main display. "Our mission is simple but nearly impossible. We can't outgun the Kraxun fleet. We can't outrun them. But thanks to Dr. Kapoor's work, we might be able to outsmart them." The screen showed a complex schematic of the Phoenix's unique systems. Unlike conventional spacecraft, the Phoenix could create localized quantum fields that altered the fundamental properties of matter and energy within its immediate vicinity. In theory, this would allow it to adapt to any weapon or defense the Kraxun deployed. "We launch in 30 minutes, Voss concluded. "Earth is counting on us, even if they don't know it yet." The Phoenix slipped from its hidden lunar dock, accelerating silently toward the outer system. For 3 days, they traveled under complete communications blackout, the crew alternating between tense preparation and uneasy rest. Everyone understood the stakes, not just their lives, but the freedom and possibly the survival of their entire species. On the 4th day, they reached the detection threshold of the Kraxan fleet. "Visual contact established," reported Lieutenant Weizong, the tactical officer. Counting 117 vessels of varying configurations, their flagship is massive. The main screen displayed the Kraxan battle formation, a perfect three-dimensional lattice of warships, each positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire. At the center floated the inevitable Dominance, a vessel that dwarfed Earth's largest cities. "They've detected us," Chen announced, her voice tight. Receiving transmission. Admiral Zorthal's imposing visage filled the screen. His reptilian features showed what humans would recognize as contempt mixed with mild curiosity. "Unidentified Earth vessel," he began, his translator converting his complex harmonic language into English. "You have violated the quarantine zone established by the Kraxan Empire. Return to your homeworld immediately and await the processing of your species. Resistance is inadvisable." Commander Voss stood, straightening her uniform. "This is Commander Ilara Voss of the Earth Defense Vessel Phoenix. We are here to negotiate terms for peaceful coexistence between our civilizations." The Kraxan Admiral's scales shifted to a vivid orange. Amusement. "Negotiations. Your species has nothing to offer, and no position from which to bargain. I admire your courage, Commander, sending a single vessel to face our fleet. But courage without strength is merely the final comfort of the doomed." "Perhaps," Voss replied evenly. "Or perhaps you shouldn't judge Earth by your standards. We've learned to do more with less." Zorthal's scales darkened. "A valiant sentiment. Very well, I shall grant you the honor of a proper response. Krendor, target their vessel with the forward batteries. Let them witness true power before they perish." On the Phoenix, alarms blared as targeting systems locked onto them from multiple Kraxan vessels. "Energy buildup detected," John reported. "Multiple weapons systems charging. Impact in 15 seconds. Dr. Kapoor's fingers flew across his console. "Quantum field generators online. Phase matching protocols engage." Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair. "All hands, brace for impact. Activate the QED on my mark." Mark. The Phoenix hummed as the quantum entanglement drive engaged, creating a field of altered reality around the ship just as the first Kraxan energy weapons fired. What happened next would change the course of interstellar relations forever. The brilliant beams of destructive energy struck the Phoenix and passed through it as if the ship weren't there. Not around it, not deflected by shields, but literally through the vessel, which momentarily existed in a different quantum state. On the inevitable Dominance, Admiral Zorthal rose from his command throne in shock. "Impossible," he hissed. "Fire again. All batteries." The Kraxan fleet responded, unleashing a barrage that should have atomized any vessel caught in its path. Again, the energy passed harmlessly through the Phoenix. "It's working," Kapoor exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief at his own creation's success. "The QED is phase-shifting us faster than their targeting systems can adjust." Commander Voss allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the next phase. "Lieutenant Zhang, prepare the data package. Lieutenant Chen, open a direct channel to Admiral Zorthal." Admiral Zorthal was experiencing something entirely new to him: uncertainty. In 300 cycles of military service, he had never encountered a technology like this. The human vessel simply should not exist after the firepower directed at it. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessel is approaching. They are broadcasting again." "On screen," Zorthal ordered, his scales now an unsettled mixture of colors. Commander Voss appeared, looking remarkably calm for someone who should be dead. "Admiral Zorthal, I believe we can now have that discussion about peaceful coexistence." "What trickery is this?" the Admiral demanded. No defensive system could withstand our combined firepower. Not a defensive system in the way you understand it, Voss explained. We simply step aside from your reality momentarily. Perhaps now you recognize that humans might have something valuable to offer after all. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zorthal faced a situation with no clear protocol. The Supreme Commander would expect him to crush this insolent species, yet clearly their technology was far more advanced than initially assessed. The implications were disturbing. You have my attention, Commander, he finally conceded. But do not mistake curiosity for weakness. One ship, no matter how unusual, cannot stand against an empire. Voss's expression remained neutral. Perhaps not. But before you make your next decision, you should know that we've been gathering data on your fleet's communications protocols since we arrived. Dr. Kapoor has been quite thorough. As if on cue, the lights on the inevitable dominance flickered, and several secondary systems went offline. A demonstration, Voss continued. We could have targeted life support or weapons. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. The first part of humanity's desperate gambit had succeeded. But as the Phoenix hovered before the massive Kraxon flagship, the real test was yet to come. One ship against an empire, with humanity's future hanging in the balance. The human factor. Admiral Zorthal's scales had settled into a dangerous deep red as he conferred with his command staff. The human vessel, this Phoenix, had demonstrated technology that defied Kraxon understanding. Worse, it had somehow penetrated their supposedly impenetrable security protocols. How deeply have they compromised our systems? He demanded. His chief information officer lowered his head submissively. Unknown, Admiral. Their intrusion method isn't detectable by our standard security algorithms. It's as if they're operating on a different plane of information. Quantum entanglement, muttered the science officer. They're not just using it for defense. They're using it to transmit and receive data instantaneously through subspace, bypassing our encryption entirely. Zorthal turned back to the view screen where Commander Voss waited patiently. The Kraxon Empire had not become the dominant force in this sector by being inflexible. When faced with superior technology, adaptation was necessary. Commander Voss, he addressed her with new formality. The Kraxon Empire acknowledges your unique position. What precisely do you propose? Aboard the Phoenix, the crew exchanged surprised glances. Their desperate plan was actually working. A cessation of hostilities, Voss replied. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty and territorial rights within the Sol system, and open dialogue regarding future relations between our species. Zorthal's facial ridges twitched in what might have been amusement. Bold demands from a species with a single advanced vessel. A single vessel that your entire fleet cannot destroy, Voss countered. And one that has already demonstrated access to your most secure systems. The tension stretched between them like a taut wire. In the Phoenix's engineering section, Chief Engineer Reynolds monitored the QED's power levels with growing concern. The quantum field is becoming unstable, he reported over the internal comm. We can't maintain this configuration much longer without risking a catastrophic collapse. Dr. Kapoor nodded grimly. The theoretical models predicted this. We're pushing the boundaries of physics here. Commander Voss received this information through her earpiece, but kept her expression neutral. They needed to press their advantage while they still had it. Admiral, she continued, I'm transmitting details of our proposed non-aggression pact. As a gesture of good faith, we've also included specifications for establishing basic quantum communication protocols compatible with your systems. It was a calculated risk, giving the Kraxon access to a simplified version of their quantum communication technology. But Voss knew that understanding the principles didn't mean they could replicate the QED itself. On the inevitable dominance, the Kraxon leadership reviewed the transmitted data with growing interest. What had begun as a simple conquest was rapidly evolving into something far more complex. The technology alone would advance our capabilities by decades, the science officer observed. even this limited version. Zorthal's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. Supreme Commander Vexnar expected a simple assimilation mission. This complicates matters. We could still destroy their homeworld, Sub-Admiral Krendor suggested. This vessel is impressive, but it cannot protect an entire planet, and risk losing access to this technology forever. Zorthal shook his head. No, the strategic value of peaceful acquisition outweighs the satisfaction of conquest. He returned his attention to the view screen. Commander Voss, the Kraxon Empire is willing to consider your proposal with modifications. We will establish a demilitarized zone around your solar system while negotiations proceed. But make no mistake, any aggressive action will be met with immediate retaliation. Aboard the Phoenix, tension gave way to cautious relief. They had bought Earth time, perhaps enough for humanity to prepare proper defenses based on the QED technology. Acceptable terms, Admiral, Voss agreed. We will withdraw to a position near your designated coordinates to continue discussions. As the communication ended, the Phoenix's bridge erupted in controlled celebration. They had faced the impossible and somehow emerged victorious, at least for now. I can't believe that worked, Lieutenant Chen whispered, her hands still shaking slightly. Dr. Kapoor smiled tiredly. The physics worked exactly as predicted. It's the diplomacy that surprised me. Commander Voss allowed herself a small smile. The Kraxon value efficiency and power. We demonstrated both. But we're not out of danger yet. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Zhang, maintain defensive posture. They may still be considering their options. Indeed, aboard the inevitable dominance, Admiral Zorthal was already devising contingency plans. The humans had demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and adaptation, traits the Kraxon respected, but also recognized as potentially dangerous. Begin detailed analysis of their vessel, he instructed his science team. I want to understand every aspect of this quantum entanglement technology, and if we cannot replicate it, asked his chief scientist. Zorthal's scales shifted to a calculating purple. Then we must ensure they become valuable allies rather than formidable enemies. As the Phoenix repositioned, the quantum field generators finally reached their limit. The ship shuddered as the QED automatically powered down to prevent catastrophic failure. That's it, Reynolds reported grimly. The drive needs at least 12 hours to cool and recalibrate. We're vulnerable until then. Commander Voss nodded calmly, though her mind raced through contingencies. Maintain passive sensors only. If they detect our systems going offline, they might reconsider their position. For tense hours, the Phoenix drifted at the designated coordinates, its crew rotating through battle stations as they waited to see if the Kraxon would honor their agreement or recognize humanity's bluff. Admiral Zorthal watched the human vessel carefully. His sensors detected the power fluctuations, the cooling of their mysterious drive system. The Phoenix was vulnerable now, a perfect opportunity to eliminate the threat. And yet, your orders, Admiral. Sub-Admiral Krendor prompted. Their defensive systems appear to be offline. Zorthal considered the situation with the calculating precision that had earned him his rank. Destroying the Phoenix now would be easy, but short-sighted. The humans had demonstrated technology beyond Kraxon understanding. If one small vessel could achieve this, what might their entire species accomplish if united against a common threat? Maintain position, he ordered finally, and prepare a diplomatic delegation. I will report to Supreme Command that initial contact has yielded unexpected opportunities. 3 days later, the first official diplomatic exchange between humanity and the Kraxon Empire took place aboard a neutral station hastily constructed between the two fleets. Commander Voss led the human delegation, while Admiral Zorthal represented the Kraxon. You took a tremendous risk, the Admiral noted during a private moment. Your ship's systems were offline for nearly 14 hours. We could have destroyed you. Voss nodded. We calculated that risk. But we also calculated that you're a rational being, Admiral. Destruction is easy. Creation, cooperation, is more challenging but infinitely more rewarding. An unusual perspective for a military commander, Zorthel observed. Perhaps that's what your empire missed in your initial assessment, Voss replied. Humans are contradictory by nature. We fight among ourselves, true, but we're also capable of tremendous cooperation when necessary. Our strength isn't in uniformity, but in diversity, of thought, of approach, of solutions. The Admiral's scales shifted through several colors as he processed this concept, a chaotic approach to existence. Adaptable, Voss corrected. Like the Phoenix itself. When news reached Earth of the Phoenix's mission and its improbable success, humanity experienced something it had never known before. True unity in the face of a common situation. Nations that had been enemies for generations now collaborated on defensive technology. Resources previously devoted to internal conflicts were redirected towards space exploration and development. 6 months later, Earth launched its second quantum-enabled vessel, followed by 5 more within the year. Not warships, but research vessels, diplomatic ships, and exploration craft, all carrying the message that humanity sought knowledge and cooperation rather than conquest. The Craxon, for their part, reassessed their entire approach to expansion. Admiral Zorthal, now promoted to Supreme Strategic Advisor, introduced reforms that emphasized technological and cultural exchange over military dominance. The humans taught us a valuable lesson, he explained to the Craxon High Council. True power lies not merely in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to recognize when not to. 2 years after the Phoenix's historic mission, Commander, now Admiral, Ilara Voss returned to the edge of the solar system to meet with her counterpart. As their ships established communication, she reflected on how a single vessel had changed the course of 2 civilizations. They were prepared for a fleet, she later wrote in her memoirs. But one human ship was all it took, not because of superior firepower or numbers, but because we offered something more valuable than surrender or resistance. We offered possibility. In the vastness of space, the alliance between humans and Craxon became the foundation for a new approach to galactic relations. Other species, watching cautiously from afar, took note. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from overwhelming force, but from the courage to extend a hand when expected to raise a fist. And it had all begun with a single ship named Phoenix, carrying humanity's greatest weapons, ingenuity, adaptability, and hope.